Hello, fellow travelers. Are you brave enough for today's episode? We're going to be taking you underneath the city of Edinburgh, taking you on a ghost tour. We're going to learn who resided in vaults under the ground. We're also going to be taking you for a trip to Greyfriars Kirkyard after dark. We'll visit the plague doctors, the witches, and more. Come join us for the adventure. Hi, I'm Cher, and I love sharing travel with you. If you love travel like I do, then make sure you pop that subscribe button, stick around, and let's see what adventures await us. Ghost Tours of Edinburgh. This is definitely something I'm so excited about. So we are on our way there now to make it in time. We have a reservation booked for our tour guide, taking us to the vaults underground Edinburgh, as well as other places. Lots of ghost tour. Okay, we're waiting for our ghost tour. Look at this beautiful city lit up at night. Edinburgh, Scotland is a beautiful and thriving historic city. It's even more beautiful and magical at night. I love being here at dusk. However, there is kind of an eerie feeling as you think about the history that resides here. And we learned much about this history on the ghost tour that we booked. We met around what used to be the market center in the Royal Mile of Edinburgh. And so one of the first things we learned about in the first stops on the tour was around this market center area where many of the gruesome executions took place in the center of civic action.
Burger place. Ironically enough, you will see the same shape on the ground made out of stone. That is where the original place is. Now the market cross, as it sounds, was where the market was. Yes.
So the Mercat Cross is a very significant structure. It sits in the center of the market square area in Old Edinburgh. It is surrounded by St. Giles Cathedral to the left. Religion played a huge role in Scottish history and was also responsible for the deaths of many poor souls who did not conform to those in power over it. Whenever there was a public proclamation to be made, such as a change in the succession of the monarchy, it was made here at the Mercat Cross, right by the St. Giles Church, as well as the Parliament that sat as an L shape behind it. Those in opposition to the crown or church were often executed here.
What he did to earn this reputation is the way that he convinced you to convert. So, the way he convinced you to convert was one of two ways. The first one being his sermons. If his sermons detailing every single way you would be excruciatingly tortured in hell was not enough to convince you to join the church.
John Knox was one preacher in opposition to Mary Queen of Scots who was responsible for converting many from Catholicism over to Presbyterianism.
And so when they buried here, they marked the grave in order to make sure that nobody stepped on it, because it was said that if you stepped on it, you and your entire bloodline would be cursed. You're welcome, sir.
He's said to be buried beneath this ground by the St. Giles Church where he wanted to be. Next, we explore underground Edinburgh, below the city in the vaults. These are a series of chambers formed below the arches of Southbridge, formed in 1788.
Like if you feel something scurrying down your feet, that's leading you on the ground.
Below these grounds lived a plague doctor who would come and treat the patients and victims left behind and stashed away in these chambers when they had the plague so that others would not catch it. Among those were children, so you can find a room filled with toys and dolls, some known that come to life.
She got thrown into the Loch of the North and she floated.
Not only was the underground Edinburgh for the poorest of the poor, it is also where the witches hung out, as well as the witch hunter who was on a mission to clear the city of all witches. Lord Provost, who was a chief to King James VI, the chief witch hunter. Next, we escaped the harrowing dark tunnels and came back above ground to visit Greyfriars Kirkyard. This is it during the daylight. A great place for tourists, especially a site where you can find the tombs of inspired names for the Harry Potter movies and books. However, it's a different story at nighttime, after dark. And at the front of the church is where the well-known little dog named Bobby was very loyal to his owner and stayed there for 14 years guarding his owner's grave.
Hands up. Okay. Some of you have No. So, Bobby, everybody say hello to Bobby. Hello, Bobby. So, Bobby used to be, yeah, I asked you to, it's okay. So, Bobby used to be one of the guards here at Greyfriars Kirkyard. He was very, very protective because there was a very big issue in Greyfriars Kirkyard that required.
Now, during the 1800s, there was a hot commodity for body snatchers, or what was known as resurrection men. These men robbed graveyards in order to sell the body parts to researchers because the city of Edinburgh was huge on anatomy at the time in research. This led to what's known as mort safes, or big giant cages to cover the graves of family members to keep them from being dug up. It also led to the famous serial killers Hare and Burke, who ended up murdering many victims in order to sell their parts to the researchers.
Welcome to the Covenanters prison. Now, back in the day, in 1707 and a little bit before that, y'all remember how everyone had to be converted and had to accept that England was their king now. And as I mentioned, that went absolutely great here. Yeah, y'all remember that? Yeah. Well, there was a group of men here in Scotland called the Covenanters because they wrote up a document called the Covenant. The Covenant was basically a document that said the following: I hate Charles II. I reject him as my king. I hate the Church of England. I reject it as my religion. Screw you, England. Signed. Full name. Now, if you're going to commit an act of treason, may I simply suggest not to sign your full name at the bottom of the page? I feel like that would be a little bit obvious, but clearly not. So don't do that. Covenanters were quite proud of this. However, when Charles II hears there's a tiny little revolution brewing up in Scotland, he's not well too pleased. So he sends one George Mackenzie, the Lord Advocate of Scotland at the time, to figure it out. And what did he do? He rounded around 250 other Covenanters and shoved them all in here. The conditions within this prison were said to be just as bad as those within concentration camps. Most of the Scots didn't make it out alive. If you made it out alive, it was for one of two reasons. One, you were going to be executed in the next 20 minutes or so. Or two, you signed a document accepting Charles II, accepting England, and accepting the Church of England. Good luck finding many Covenanters who did that. So as you can imagine, there's quite a bit of activity in here because the Covenanters were quite upset about what happened. So much so that is why it is locked. There is a lock on here.
So as you heard from the guide, this is a very eerie place where the prisoners were kept. Of the 257 men kept here, only 48 survived with these brutal conditions. While the door was locked in here and you can't see well in the dark, we were able to put our hands through the gate. Many describe this area as a feeling of discomfort, of dis-ease, like there are spirits among us. So we had to try it out ourselves. Do we feel that there's anything there? Anybody grabbing our hands? Let's check it out. I don't feel anything, but discomfort, perhaps.
Black Mausoleum is home of one George Mackenzie. Hey, Bloody Mackenzie, right? Bloody Mackenzie, he earned himself the nickname due to all the blood he had on his hands. The Scots considered him a traitor and therefore, alienated him from society. However, George Mackenzie was haunted within his own right due to the event with the Covenanters. See, he started having this recurring nightmare every so often of the fiery pits of hell and the voices of the Covenanters yelling at him that they were waiting for him in hell, ready to take their revenge. Yeah, kind of like that. As if that wasn't enough, he started...
So Bloody Mackenzie was buried in this very mausoleum where he was so close to the very victims he had tortured and imprisoned. It is said that his ghost remains here where he is taunted by his evil works. Many have reported on encountering his ghost. Visitors sometimes return home only to find scratch marks all over their body from where they had visited at the mausoleum. And I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. What did you learn today from Haunted Edinburgh? Don't forget to pop that subscribe button and stick around for more haunted ghost stories and travel in Scotland. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.